Hello, my name is Sherry Smith, and I'm going to show you how to do a color field painting using an abstract landscape. And we are painting, I drew out a abstraction of this landscape, and we've simplified it. And color field painting is from the 1950s to the present. It's a style of painting involving large flat areas of color. Color field paintings are usually meant just to make the viewers think about what they see, not to express a definite idea or emotion. So we've talked a little bit about, and we're focusing on the artwork of Helen Frankenthaler and how she used her innovative soak stain technique to create delicate and light landscapes, focusing on the importance of color in with her abstraction of her work. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to go ahead and make these lines a little bit more concrete. So what I mean is if you have sketchy areas like this, let's go ahead and solidify these lines. And if there's any sketchiness, let's get rid of that. So that way we have concrete lines and shapes. That's what will really, the important thing are shapes. Okay, so creating an abstraction. So it's simplified a landscape. And your landscape could be a seascape. It could be of mountains, whichever you choose. And then we're simplifying these shapes and making them a little bit more concrete. And yes, I am pressing a little bit harder, but these are my definite lines. These are not sketchy. These are the lines that I'm committing to. These are going to stay. I've often used Sharpies, but I'm going to stick with pencil this time. And in my other video, I showed you different watercolor techniques, wet on wet, wet on dry, blending, and also wet with salt. So I'm going to be using a variety of these different techniques. And I really want you to explore with color. So if you say to yourself, I wonder what purple and yellow make. Well, you know what? Do it. Go for it. Okay, let's clean up all these sketchy lines. Get rid of the sketch lines. Okay. All right. So I'm going to deposit a large amount of water. So I'm just going to paint with water right here. And then I don't want you to use your primary or your secondary colors. I want you to create your own colors. So for example, if I'm going to use yellow, I don't want to use yellow straight from the bottle. What I'm going to do is take the yellow and just change it up a little bit. So now I have like this deep yellow. Okay. And then I'm going to change it. I'm going from yellow to kind of an orange. Very warm. Add a little bit of red. Not too much. That's a little too much. I'm going to just paint with water right now so I can blend back into this color. I'm going to take a little bit of red and add its complement, deepen it up with a little bit of green. See how that's a deep red? That was just using a little bit of green instead of black. Wash out my brush, paint with some water. See, it's nice to paint with water because it like lightens it up on its own without using white. Now, if I want this to be a crisp line like that, then I want to let this dry, because if I work on this area wet, it's going to bleed into it. So I'm going to move down at the bottom. I'm going to create kind of a blue-green down here. And when you think of green, green is directly across from red on the color wheel. So let's add a little bit of red. I didn't use a lot of red, but I did use enough to where it deepened my green. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush so I can get in these tight areas. Now I'm going to switch to more of a blue. And I think I'm going to use some salt. Sprinkle a little salt in here, just to give it some crystallize effect when it dries, so that salt will melt with that water and create a nice like little crystal effect. It's a little bit much down here, but that's okay. Then you know what? Let's do wet on wet. What color? Let's see. Let's add a little orange. So it's like kind of a brown, because blue and orange, you guessed it, are directly across from each other on the color wheel. So they're going to make a brown. And I'm okay with these shapes bleeding into each other. I'm going to even throw a little bit of the salt from over here. Now I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to take some yellow and some purple and create a different kind of brown. Load up with some water, extend that, and I'm okay with this blue coming over. And up here, that's drying. I'm going to hit this with some more blue. Nice bleeding. I'm going to continue on. And I'm really feeling like a yellow-green here. Load up with some water, paint with some water. Okay. And I'm going to hit this with some more salt. All right, now over here, I think I'm going to go back with blue. Okay, now I've got this blue. It's going to transition nicely to this yellow-green. So I've got this large area. Just allowing myself and allowing the colors to just guide me. Maybe subconsciously I chose green for the bottom because of the shrubbery. And let's see, let's just add a little bit of orange straight on here. Okay, see how that's a little bit too much orange? So we want to balance it. I'm going to add some blue to this. And we're going, now I'm back to like a brown. So using that color theory, still got a little bit too much orange. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue. So if you just look at a color wheel, it's whatever color it's directly across from as its complement. Let's add a little bit more salt. I'm working rather quickly, so if you don't work this fast, that's fine. Go at our own pace. This is a smaller brush I've switched to get into these small areas. And I want that crisp line, so I'm not going to put wet here just yet. Then I'm going to switch back to a yellow green. And then over here, I'm feeling like a blue-green. So we've created an abstraction. Abstract means non-recognizable. So what we're trying to do here is to evoke a sense of atmosphere and emotion in your landscape. You see how these are simplified forms. Now, something that you can do, let's just say you got a little too much water. You take a paper towel and you can blot some of it out. And that also creates a pattern, some texture. See that implied texture? Or if you want to take a little piece and just lay it down to lift up that and just blot some of that. But it also lifts up some of the color. I don't know if you've noticed that. So, I want to emphasize too the importance of patience, allowing this to dry before we put another layer on it, allowing this to dry if we want to add another layer. Okay, so over here, I don't know. I'm feeling like a little blue purple. Actually, right in here. Very vibrant, adding some water. And I'm okay if this blue purple bleeds into the blue right here. There it goes. You see that bleeding? Then I'm going to take a little bit of blue. Take a little bit more purple. And I'm going to get a little crazy and add some yellow here. I'm going to wipe rinse off my brush, and add a little bit more purple. Rinse off my brush. Now I'm going to go back to blue. And I need to know when to switch brushes to get into tight areas. Take a minute. So this is a lot of wet on wet. And I think I'm going to come over here and add a nice crisp blue purple line around these two shapes. So you're creating an atmosphere, an abstract landscape. And if the person next to you in your class is doing something totally different than you, doesn't mean that they're wrong. This is an individual thing. This is your expression, your abstraction, your colors. And isn't it wonderful to be different from one another? Wouldn't life be extremely boring if we were all the same? I think so. The first time I did watercolor, I was in maybe like 7th grade, and it did this bleeding, and I didn't understand it. No one taught me wet and dry, so I didn't understand why it kept bleeding into other spots. It was very frustrating. You can even turn your paper where it's easier for you to access area. This, well, you can kind of see it. Hold on. This area is getting dry, and I'm going to try to do the wet dry technique. And I think, let's see, I want to get a little crazy and get this hot pink. So I'm just using tempera paint. All right. So I'm going to take this hot pink and mix a little bit of red, a little bit of water. And notice my brush strokes. I mean, do you want your brush strokes to be back and forth like this? Do you like the texture that your brush creates when you dance the brush around? I kind of like to dance my brush around. You can add white too, or you can use the white of your page. The white, but I would shy away from using black. I would use the complement instead. Now we got like a light baby pink. I'm going to brace my pinky to get close and up on this line. Coming back and dancing my brush so that way this kind of has that uniform look. Put a little bit of red over here. Transition a little bit. Wash out my brush. Add a little bit more white. You have a dirty brush, it kind of affects the other parts of your painting, especially if you're working with light colors. Now you can really see this crisp line? Very different than the bleeding down here. That was on purpose. You have a little bit of bleeding here, so I'm going to go over it with this dark pink. So we're taking a mistake and making it into a masterpiece. See, you can't even really tell that was even there. Maybe I'll hit it with a little bit of red. Okay. A little bit of red. You want a straight line. Load up your brush. Press your brush down to the metal and just drag it. I got that red there. It's at its complement, which is green. I'm going to deepen up that red. See how I deepen that up with the color that's directly across from it on the color wheel? Red, that's green. You can remember that because it's Christmas colors. Take a little bit of this neon, drag it. Okay. Now we've got this here in the middle. And what I think I'm going to do is take a little bit more white. I'm going to take a wider brush, load up some white. Oops, I did not mean to. Look at this, the dirty brush, dirty water. So if you have dirty water, then your paper's dirty. So now I gotta make this to where I meant to do that. Okay, so improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? So I'm gonna take a little bit of orange, like a creamsicle. I'm gonna change my brush stroke, which creates a texture. Complementary color of orange. So what's directly across from orange on the color wheel? Think of the Bears, the football team, the Bears, and that would be blue. So I take a little bit of blue, like a hamster lick of blue. I'm going to deepen up that orange. See that? Just a little bit. Really like this texture that I'm creating with my brush. See that? Just back and forth. I don't know. It's just really nice. A little bit more blue. Add a little bit of water. Rinse out my brush. That was a bit much on the blue. That's okay. Allowing myself to let this painting take me where it wants to go. It's all about abstraction. It's non-recognizable artists. It's a great work of art by Helen Frankenthaler called Mountains and Sea. And you could really gain an understanding of color, abstraction, and the emotional impact of abstraction in landscapes, like what we're doing now. I mean, maybe your landscape, you want it to be not so cheerful. That's okay. Or maybe you want it to be even more happy. I don't know. That's okay too. Taking a little bit of white, that creamsicle effect. Let's just take a moment and look and see where I need to change something. Really experiment with these watercolor techniques. Develop your own expressive way of making art, inspired by color field painting. Okay, so now it's time for a little layering. So this is a technique called dry brush. I'm going to take a little bit of blue and I'm going to brush out the main pigment, make it dry, and then I'm going to go over, let's try white. And there's a little bit of difference here, a little bit. Let me try green. Ooh, and I like that texture too. That's nice. It's like lifting up a little bit. Okay. Now this last shape, I'm going to take some white. That white is really weird. Some blue. And a scrumbling effect using my brush to create different textures. This is like an in-between a dry brush and a wet. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing over here, but with a blue over here. Ah, that's more of a purple. So let's revisit that. All right, notice no white. If you want to continue on and add in some line work, that's very, very nice. We got green here, and I'm going to mix some green and red. And as I'm using my brush, I'm rolling it around to change that line quality. If you prefer more of wispy lines, you can do that. Just being very free, allowing myself to express where this painting is taking me. Taking a dry brush technique over here with orange. Who would ever thought, you know? Why not? Experiment, test it, try it, have fun. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. And that's just green and orange. It's an interesting combo. I don't have any black. Not that I'm against using black paint, but you can get more vibrant colors by using complements. Experiment. Don't use black. You can get close to black. You can get a more vibrant shade. Okay, this is about finished. The last thing, take a color of your choice, and I'm going to sign it in the bottom right. Thank you for joining me today on our inspirational abstract landscapes inspired by Helen Frankenthaler, as well as the color field painting.